Thank you for being with us, and thank you for joining us via live stream as well. I will remind you, let's be in the moment. Let's shut out everything that is happening in our world and be present for music and the spoken word and the healing qualities and the peaceful qualities that it can bring. Sean, I'm going to ask that you come up and introduce our poet.
Good morning. We're so fortunate because Cheryl C.M. Clark chose to move to Sebastian. And our mutual friend, Michael Heddick, said, Cheryl Clark's moving to your area. And Michael did one of these. And they both were educators in Miami. And both at Miami-Dade, correct?
Yes.
And he said, I'm going to introduce you to her so that you'll have a friend. And I have a wonderful friend. And she's so smart. God almighty. I mean, I studied about cows in school, and she studied literature. And she's gifted in her knowledge. And so she's going to do our second to last program. And it's by actually repeat. She's done one before. I think she did an Advent one about 2 years ago. So incidentally, and she brought some of her publications, and I have them right there where I'm sitting. She has appeared in a number of journals all over the U.S., really, and has been a featured presenter at the Miami Book Fair on many occasions. And to name a few, the Paddock Review, Ovenbird, Metonym Literary Journal, the Lindenwood Review, Dogwood, a journal of poetry and prose, the South Florida Poetry Journal. We have Lenny as a mutual friend. But anyway, she served as an inaugural poet in residence at the Deering Estate and wrote, did we have one of those here? We have several, don't we?
The Deering book. The
Deering book, yeah, that she wrote about during her residency. So anyway, we could go on and on. But instead, we'll let her go on and on with her wonderful poetry.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
So nice. Thank you so much. Wish me luck. Okay. Thank you so much, Sean. And everyone, thank you all so much for coming. And Andrew, it's wonderful to collaborate with you again. I feel overwhelmed by the surroundings a little bit. I see everybody's wearing blue, and I didn't get the memo, I think, so I don't know. Sorry. I'm so excited to be part of this amazing series, this Lenten journey as we move our way toward Easter. This is springtime, and it's not accidental that it occurs at the resurgence time of year. And it's also a time of transition, as we all know. It's not yet winter. Even here in Florida, our cold days, I think, are gone, sadly. And the heat of summer hasn't quite arrived yet. So it's really a transition. And for some people, sometimes younger, it's a transition also between childhood and adulthood. Maybe some of you who grew up north, the ladies, remember after winter, your mom, I remember my mom did, took us to buy spring coats. Remember the spring coat? It wasn't a winter coat, and it wasn't summer, but somehow it was very special. So this is a poem about the spring coat in honor of spring. It is too early for the bougainvillea, too soon for so much magenta, so many petals, such crepe twirling tissued streamers in the gym. Just a day, like the last dance before graduation, before summer. The theme was spring fever, a virus we'd all catch, like herpes from a kiss, and chronic. The symptoms only are treatable. My faceless future susceptible, fingertips without prints. It's ventricular, the gong of sudden longing. And hidden inside the pregnant pause, 2 skipped beats of my tiring heart. Driving north, my mother's bones call out across tomato fields. Farm earth bit in furrows fallow for now. Recovering by doses of ancient nitrogen, waste not, want not. In the spring rain so sudden, the craped green blows wild like hair left hanging, caught sodden, not nearly as tacit and hemmed as loomed or woven, invoking this burgeoning chlorophyll. The birds sit sharp-eyed to windward, poised to hear the next sheet drenching sidewards, clustered on branches, still sudden, tangled bare, an ancient heartbreak, caught in robes and rollers glaring, shuffling mules weighing the competition, newborn and wet, fresh. In the spring, they plant trees, still with tags tied, matching costumes laundered and conscientious. As soon as the cloud passes, comes the chorus of oily drops and wet wings, bird song and wind-dried fence posts, tree bark and empty corners, vacated wires, the whir of feathers. Spring coat on my lap, 2 sides of the split season, satin and wool. I wore my spring coat too soon, the late winter bitter, bitten, and too long into the warm weather. But I loved it. Winter white, spring clean, sharp lapels and buttons, the heft and hue of virgin lilac. You are like spring, poignant and brief. One day I wake up and all colored petals glue the ground. Pretty stamps from foreign countries. Outside my front door, everything is green, green only. So much life, photosynthesis ongoing, whether I care or not. Wonderful. We do love to hang on to our souvenirs, don't we? Our keepsake, all those keepsakes. Photos, school projects from our kids, from grandkids. It's very difficult to let go of the past when it's done, and they tell us somehow we have to live in the present, look forward to the future, but we have to remind ourselves often to live now, and we can love the past and remember it, but we can't cling to it. This one is called You Will Not Make Relics. This time, Leah brought flowers. She wrapped them in oiled paper to discourage the black flies, the army ants, the rampaging legions of the undercore set to work their spell. This chain plot she named her garden. Not hers, really, just plowed and pruned by one blunt-cut grandmother dressed in cotton and knit socks, one never mirrored face to face. Yet the gardening gloves fit her hand to glove like a glove. Leah never saw the irony in the empty day. There were clouds obscuring the sun, and their eyes gazed sideways, the wind. Now the day is the daylight's end. There are no geese to separate. Their plucking subdued, the light closed in cloud cover, the shade clear across the yard of sand grain and slide. Leah slips away, dogged to stealth in the corners of traffic, last feed, last peat ember, bed and food, a reluctant camouflage. The condo in Xi'an was spacious, the garden cool and 2 flights down. In summer, insects flew, finding the pinholes in the kitchen screen, but room to wander from room to room. Movement to a space framing absolutions, cheek by jowl, enumerated, and slip streaming site by site, small, one key cut the illusion of security. The papers of note keep company, decomposing watermarks, fingerprints under black light, the milestones and threshold markers, the mule's retort. Joint tenants of an old world, limbed by paper. The sand has a voice, the raptors, the wings of falcons shearing cloud wool, the spring coats of young camels, the males. In Xi'an, the desk drawers opened and closed, the fires banked, the windows oiled, hinges oiled, newsprint cleaning casements with vinegar. Its presence loud, loud, the street traffic, the feet of females prosaic and secular, the males bouncing to angels' virtual choirs. Dinner tables and low-riding clouds in spring, basso profundo, the fathers and brothers, the sons by marriage, like clouds interred, the grounding horizon, the limit line, a scarab that entered the wrong ear, the wrong untraveled voyagers, the singing higher, the loss of range and hormone and sheer accompaniment. Perfect. Emily Dickinson says, hope is a thing with feathers. And I guess to be a hopeful person, you have to be one of those strange people they call optimists. So what are you? What am I? You know, the old saying, the way you can tell is whether the glass is half full. If it's half full, you're an optimist. If the glass is half empty, well, then you're a pessimist. I wonder about that, and I guess I learned to be a little bit more optimistic when my grandson was born, and now I have two. So this is for him. It's called the ultimate half empty, half full. Into my sad, dry face, the air rising from somewhere else, sealed, sponging the untidy mile markers, crusted once over, lines left in passing by migrating vagrants preoccupied, stunned by this newness in breathing. The breath comes cool, surprising. Who would imagine the inner heat beating its newfangled heart could be so certain? Across my face's tired plains, the cells, slack with endless replicating, comes the breath. Breathing like there's no chore, finding your place here along our wearisome axis, circling without care for traces of ginger or honey or sweet milk, sweet air and jasmine that blooms only by night and breathes, breathing. The shock of air must hit young lungs like a truncheon, sharp and clear, elastic, with the new mix of marigold and oxygen, dating nitrogen and slouching, with traces left elemental on the breath that breathes now on me. I am a generation away, not mine, this hothouse of tilled acres, the turquoise lake, the waters slaking a dogged prehensile thirst. But the aftertaste somehow seeks company, where exhale seeking inhale and cool breath breathes out to mix anatomically. In yoga, they teach the breath is all, the breathing, the rock that steadies the wobbling will to sleep and wake another day. How many breaths in one lifetime? How many will sing or croon or call to the rotating first friends that breathe your new name? You who call in wonder, believing it's the breath that moves the felt shapes, their primary colors, the breath that brings us to you, the breath that makes the music. Very joyous, very spring. And here in the spring, because things seem to be improving, at least as far as some of our life's experiences in the past 2 years, we've started traveling again. Maybe some of us are traveling to visit family, or traveling up north to their northern homes, or just, hitting the road again. And it is that journey, that somehow echoes what our life's journey is, the traveling from one place to the other, one home to another, one experience to another. Sometimes, though, we find ourselves in the middle. We're not where we used to be anymore, and we haven't quite reached our destination yet. This next piece that I would like to share with you talks about what happens when we find ourselves in the middle. It's called The Next to Last Chance Saloon. Halfway between Cow and Cormorant, Lake Wales appears. Your perfect excuse to quit driving, to quit the keener purpose of driving between what is boundless and the finite, always the ground between. An off-road shoulder like some old woman's bed, growing colder with years and indifferent. Can you imagine the sheer acreage of exfoliating skin, the body scent that fades with each day's exhalation? Or are you called instead inside a virtual elsewhere, the echoed jackhammer of feet, up dizzying hexagons of tiled stairways? Migraine blind, you rise 6 flights. But the back bedroom stays hidden, just waiting behind dry cleaning and winter coats cocooned and swaddled in plastic. These are the places that joust, that beckon east to west, taking refuge and a lunch where avoidance is most likely preferred, offering either chicken fried steak or breakfast all day, or just the jazz of numbing hours and miles just for the lust of soft Gulf water. There is a dead spot I like between points on the map, still too close to the town receding, as only a vague blur of slow traffic and low buildings fixed in the rearview mirror. Yet not yet near enough the next county line. Not yet my destination, yet a welcome relief from the monotony of brush and flat field. In this dead spot, I spin the dial, still a younger sister to radio days, knowing the place by the cell phone towers, better than the billboards, the come to Jesus vows crooning the oldies, the country quick nod to God and Sunday. But here in the dead spot, I snag only fragments of a place, already distant, and even fewer half sentences anticipating the next exit, still somewhere out beyond my windshield. Straining to hear the transmissions of forgettable voices, straining to assemble some meaningful message, although every third word is swallowed within the blur of word noise and wind shear. From here to your front door, due west, pavement plumbs the numbing miles, the succinct limits of my very human vision, my old tired eyes, the tired blue, succumbing to cataract fog and still straining west. The still unseen outpost on your coast, beyond my best attempt to conjure you in your kitchen, closing lower cupboards with a brisk hip move. The drawer with flatware juddered in closing, hiding coupons and lyrics to songs that frame the stanzas of every evening's lullaby. These late days still left unsung, but I hear it between waves, unseen like the air, unflinching like the sea. One day, rather recently, up in Sebastian, where I live, out in the western edge of that part of the county, they were doing what they call a controlled burn. Not like some of these wildfires that we worry about now. I guess this was probably last year sometime. And the controlled burn, to clear the brush and some of the overgrowth, there were all this white ash floating around, and somehow, for some reason, I thought they were butterflies. It just looked like butterflies to me. And like, no, those aren't butterflies. That's ash. And I was thinking about that, it's kind of strange. But then I realized that what we see really depends on how we see it. Not that we can control reality, but in some way, how we see things and how we interpret them really does have an effect on the world and our life's experience. So this next piece meditates on that. It's called Powerline Road and the White Butterflies. It was controlled burn time in Indian River, a chore of the moment, with no prior warning to take your lungs inside your chest and beneath your skin, inside, where safe, at least somewhat safe, or somewhere less likely to metastasize the ash of overgrown pine, scurrilous palmetto, charred shells of insects and young birds fallen before their fledgling wings could hope to hold the hollow bones up. Petals of ash floating like wedding bells pealing in and on the breath, like will-less wishes French braided, stunning choreographies paired indistinguishably white, and only the white that is smoked and backlit. Just a fake fall, more wishful thinking. And only after the sun goes down, you say, you promise, weighing that pasteurized forgery, a false perception on the western brink, here and now, escaping nimbus clouds' confines. And so a circle's light the hydrogen burns, still not moving, except to fire off redundant vapor, wasteful surplus of matter. So technically, the sun doesn't go down, but there is pleasure in thinking. It moves at our will, at eye-blink speed, aligning with old narratives, virtual and unreal. Stolen from some calliope's painted face, there's not much to weigh. What is familiar pushes front, focused as far as the street's limits. It is only late May, but there's a sideshow staged anyway, with all roles played by the usual crew, unionized and anonymous. They flaunt catkin ribbons in a heady wind, their frayed amulets. They'll unlikely remember, and they'll act done with this make-believe summer, dumb and forgetting the humid, hard afternoons, the hard months still to come. So they flit through kindergarten days relentless, their dwindling, illusory, a pantomime of sighing dusk, the call to come inside and forget. A hypocrite son cooperates, stone-faced jollying the pretense, and addicts enabling the ever-longing of low latitudes for dark and summer's end. But for a summer waiting in the wings, tutus all fluttering more than likely, only virtual images hover along the burnt edges of day. A fitting apparition, more likely if, and only if, your plowshares strike fool's gold, a bloodless coup of false and mostly ever cruel fiction. So instead of peregrine ash, what floats becomes winged, stylizing southward above ground with the wires. As long as they stay aloft, there are insect eyes and wills at work, all resplendent. Off they go. It's wonderful. I just love what Andrew says at the start of this when he reminds us to leave everything outside. That as long as we're in here with this beautiful space and the music and hopefully the words as well, we have this cocoon that everything out there, we can at least forget about it as long as we are in here. The older we get, as we leave our childhood innocence behind, we realize that the world is not a safe place. And we crave those moments and those opportunities to just, exhale. And remember that there is, perhaps small places of safety that remain for us. But I wonder if it really does exist. Is anywhere really safe? And it's hard to balance that out, to be realistic about, the realities of what's out there, but also to keep that safe place, at least within us. This next piece is called The Safe House of Rosen. There's safety in numbers, and in the one webbed crook where creped skin meets blue vein. Sometime after the equinox every fall, as mullioned light douses the inlaid tabletops, lathe-turned chair legs, where the indoor footfalls pause and turn it all to honey. Homebound traffic heads west, stays where it belongs, along with the grumbled troubles that lie in neutral and wait their implacable turn. Stopped at the light, they hold off for the time being, that time being just now. Mother, may I take just one deep breath, held in that solitary out of time, since there is no longer the place or occasion where you can ask anyone to be the mother today. Your shift clocks out. Assembly line of drawn blinds, pillows, sweet and laundered and beckoning, fancy-free duvets in fashionable patterns, a no-name harbor of the bright dark, land of the good dream quilt, outgrown. Even the afternoon storms can insinuate shelter if the roof is snug, recently reshingled, tight, where heat-treated pine beams meet, nailed, not stapled, strap-tied for the duration. Tea or a Swedish vodka cozily to toast the company. The cats hide beneath bedskirts, improvised hammocks, and tucked into soiled laundry in closet corners. The safe room in the safe house is never showy. The furniture is mismatched, often secondhand, where the baseboard meets the worn rug, flattened weave of foot traffic holds court. This is the emblem of plain, the antonym of celebrity, never known, not recognized, unsought, and least likely to broadcast proof of life. For the last piece I'd like to share with you this morning, I'll start by telling you a little story. Up in Sebastian, they have this place called the Skydive Club. And sometimes I go there just to watch these people go up in these little planes and jump out of them. And it's amazing to me. I hope maybe someday I'll have the courage to do it. I'm really a chicken. I don't know if I'll ever do it. But it's just amazing to me. And I think about how incredibly brave they are to just jump out. And hope that the parachute opens. I mean, that's the trick, right? That's the trick. Is the parachute going to open? And I guess in our life, whether we choose to jump out of airplanes or not, that, we are called upon in some way to make that leap of faith, the trust, to take that jump. So this last piece is about that. It's called Skydive at Sunrise. This is the peril, the rabid dog time. Out of which quadrant of sky will wet teeth snap? Clear sight or a clean shot lurks just beyond 5 outstretched fingertips. You breathe out, the zero Zen gasp held ever since free fall. The parachute seems to hold. You were told not to twist, the blatant danger of strangle knot or tangle of vital lines, but now the urgency clutters your throat, swallowing the rising sun. The day's oblique onset, its path shadowed and foreshadowed, a new riddle, more math than mystery. You assemble the brown mass of cows, the fields beneath fog as cool dung and animal earth first stir, the warmth of flesh opening from sleep, dreams of food and shade and forthcoming turbulent young. Below, a coast road collates oncoming traffic, separating what remains stilled from the grunt exhale of movement. If an object falls free to Earth at 9.8 meters per second squared, how long before you'd make contact with unforgiving ground? Do the math. You nudge your invisible companions, the indifferent vapors, the blinking, unseeing eyes, now insouciant and sunstruck. A pound of feathers and a pound of lead both descend, one smelling of game bird, one carcinogenic, twin equal signs indistinguishable in the bead-blurred air, the dull, coy clearing. If the retina can separate in a paroxysm of light's alarm, last burst of unnameable glare and fleet object, what seems sturdy and fixed, in fact isn't. Do the math, you whisper, still a half mile above the rocky promontory. What are the odds? What are my chances to survive the textile collapse, the free fall, on a given Thursday morning, early in January? Catch as catch can, the day's mandate, the inevitable plummeting to deaf acres, awash in a sea of colored silk.
Thank you. Thank you.
Amazing. Wow. What a performance the two of you put on. Holy cow. Well, we'll see you next week. You have to settle for me next week, you know. Thank you so much for coming.
Great. Oh, I know, it was great.
That was so great.